So welcome to Volume 2. On the next few volumes, we're going to go through all the active ideas that I believe exist. I hope it's clear from Volume 1 that active ideas are the main point of control for an acting performance. We're looking for thoughts that produce automatic behavior that runs by itself. Because you can't control behavior. You can only control the thoughts that control behavior. We did some examples like when Stevie had to get a date in a hurry, but she couldn't show that she was in a hurry.
Something bad? Do you fight crime in the night?
That's an objective plus an obstacle. Or when Pete was actually performing for the other gang members.
Listen, I was wondering if it's not too forward. If you're not doing anything tonight, you want to go someplace?
As a director, you'll know at least a couple of active ideas.
You're trying to figure out why anybody would put themselves through this. It makes no sense.
Actors usually know a lot more active ideas because they're just a big part of acting. But I found that nobody really has a very good picture of it. One person knows one handful of techniques and another knows another handful. I wasn't satisfied with that. I wanted to get every technique that we know to work on the table. I wanted to see if there was a pattern, a common thread that unites all of them. And boy, is there a pattern. Some techniques centered around how the character sees the world around him. Some centered around how he sees his future, or his past, or other people. And together, these are what I like to call outlook. Don't feel like you have to understand all of this right now. We'll go into much greater detail. Some techniques were about the character's self-image and his emotional state, which together I like to call self. Some techniques were about how the character presents himself to the world, what I call mask. Some were about how he uses his body, which I call technical acting. There's of course the objective and everything around it. And together there are the specific actions the character takes. And it's capped by the result, which for all its taboo is a real technique that I can't wait to explain. Now, if I have to be completely honest, I get an allergic reaction when people make maps like these and think they're geniuses. But the thing is that this map actually works. First of all, every active idea I'd ever used or seen or heard about fit neatly into this categorization. I also love how stacking them like this creates a continuum that goes gradually from who you are, through how you see the world, to what you specifically do up at the business end. In other words, it actually goes from being to doing. And this shows where many acting traditions have split from each other. Because some traditions say that it's all about being and getting into state. That if only you can feel it, the right behavior will happen. Other people say no, it's all about doing. That if only you can find the right active verb, everything will work out. People have actually been at war over this, but it's so obviously a continuum. You need all of them. Some directors are entirely stuck on result directing, which is a terrible place to be stuck. Other directors are stuck on the present moment outlook, thinking that if only you can paint a vivid enough picture of the character's reality, magic will happen. And many directors are also stuck on the emotional state, thinking that the goal is to whip the actor into a frenzy. But no matter how hard you push any single layer, you'll eventually max out. And then you just won't get any more out of it. The obvious conclusion is that you have to start using more layers. Because every layer affects behavior in distinct ways. Let's do a quick example with the rental character from the cop drama. The result is that we're trying to create a destitute character who's all alone trying to solve his daughter's murder. His objective is to get the cop to believe in him and support him. His obstacle is that if he opens up to her, she'll ridicule him again.
I'm 200 yards away. Measure yourself.
I'm not here about the restraining order.
His mask is to pretend that he doesn't need her approval. His technical acting is to not look at her. His future is that he doesn't have money for his next meal.
What are you hoping to achieve?
It doesn't matter what crime he suffers for. Just that he suffers.
His present is that he projects his ex-wife on her. His past is that he violated his restraining order just before she got there. Other people is the man he thinks killed his daughter and who is mocking him from afar.
Because there's just something wrong.
How do you know?
I saw... You know, I'm not crazy.
His self-image is that he's in a lower social class than her. And as part of his emotional state, he has spent time sitting in the car to get the feeling of living there. The goal isn't to use every single layer, we're just doing it for the example. But it's like each layer hits a different psychological frequency. His objective is distinct from his mask, which is distinct from his past, which is distinct from technical acting, which is distinct from his self-image. But together they create a rich mental state that hits all the parts of the psyche where behavior comes from. These are the tools that actors use to create characters, and you can expect that actors already know a lot of them. You're actually kind of the last to find out. But you can see that directing is then helping come up with active ideas, and this map provides an exact recipe.
Remember that you stole the mixer from
my ex-wife.
From your ex-wife.
Let's try to add some of the things that we thought about previously. For example, that your camera's at the pawn shop, and if you don't get back there by 11, you lose your camera. And that would kind of really suck.
You are baffled that she can be such a robot about these things here. And it's starting to freak you out a little bit. You thought you had a kindred spirit here back from the restaurant and somebody who understood you. She doesn't understand you at all.
The only thing is that you've been sitting here for a couple hours, and it's not just one detective, it's freaking 2 detectives who are coming in to check you out. It's very overwhelming. When she mentions the body, could you check out both their eyes?
Okay.
I mean, you have to be a mosquito in his eye. I mean, that's. I mean, you remember you have to get him out of the script. I don't mind if it takes you longer to understand that you're free to go.
Okay.
Can I get a little result in edgewise?
Sure.
It's just you're just correcting it. It's not a blender.
Yeah.
It's not a blender. It's a mixer. The same way that somebody would get a wizard name wrong in Dungeons and Dragons, and you would correct it.
I absolutely would. Yeah.
So it's the same way.
Thank you. I have a sense memory of that. No problem.
Okay, good. Okay. Well,
now we know.
We found your button.
The nerd is out.
That's good.
You wouldn't dump it all in one go. In fact, the goal of this whole course is actually to use as little as possible. But this works. Don't worry if this feels overwhelming. This is a big system, but we're spending hours on it. I hope that you'll afterwards agree that this is actually the simplest possible way to look at it. Okay, so now let's start our journey at the top with result directing. The consensus is that result directing is bad. A big part of the reason is that there have been many directors who simply didn't understand acting and who have bombarded actors with results until they completely shut down. Result directing has become so toxic that many directors are terrified of doing it and will go to obscene lengths to avoid it.
When you come in, I want you to take this sort of It's like a journey of a wild animal when it's going to its winter grounds. So there's some struggle there, but there's surprises along the way, and really find those surprises. Let those be a relief from the struggle of that journey. You've got this destination, right? But right now you're trapped in this, you're trapped in the dangers of the wilds and the north and the cold. So you've got all these things pressing you down, right? But there's an opportunity over there.
All that just because he's afraid to ask for it to go slower. Actors find this really annoying because it's a misunderstanding and an overreaction.
Okay, so just tell me exactly what you want.
Well, I want you to walk in slower, and be more hesitant.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Because the problem isn't result directing. The problem is the expectation that the actor should play a result. If we don't expect that, then result directing is not only not bad, it's good and necessary. There's no shame in thinking in results, and you should think in results. Otherwise, how do you know what you're trying to achieve? How would you know if the scene should be angrier or quieter? Results are simply goals, and it really helps actors to understand just a little bit of what you're trying to do. Even just knowing how you want the scene to feel.
So when you first come in, the scene's really awkward, but then once everybody sits down, it kind of warms up a little bit.
If you refuse to share your goals, if the actors have no idea what you're trying to do, it's negative because they're paralyzed from having too many possible ways to do the scene. But when you share what you're doing, up to a point, it has a positive and focusing effect and helps them to commit. But if you keep going, it starts to become negative again. And if you keep going still, it becomes very negative, to the point of destroying your relationship. The reason result directing has a bad name is because of too many clueless directors who do all their directing from here. But as long as you don't abuse your privilege, result directing is a good thing that you should do. It's like you have a result quota. If you stay under 10 or 15% result directing, it's positive. Result directing then takes the shape of setting goals, so I like to call this technique goal setter in chief. If you're the CEO of a company, you don't know how to do everything.
So then what do you think about that idea?
Most of the time, you just set goals, and then we work together to figure out how to actually do it. It's the same with acting.
So now let's do this. Let's try to make the ending really intense somehow. I don't know what we're going to do, but my secret evil plan is that we're going to make it more intense so that when we do it again, it's going to be that in the beginning. So what I'm missing is I want to find something that would make you sort of more irritated and impatient with her. What do you think creates an urgency? Of course, you know I love you. Yeah, I mean, it's, for me too, that line is just a line. But what could it mean besides the face value?
I feel like I'm so angry when she comes in, and then all of a sudden I just give it up that fast. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, I love you. And that's why that line feels difficult to say, because I feel like I just switch over.
How about being still angry? So you're only saying the words, but you're still angry.
I left after he fell asleep.
Trouble in paradise so soon, dear?
No. Billy's forgiven me. Can you forgive me?
Of course. You know I love you.
I'm still wondering what makes you stay, though, or what to do while you're staying there. I'm looking for that to be a bigger beat, a bigger change.
Okay.
Because the lines are very sincere. Let's try to come up with a subtext that makes this not sincere. Okay.
The caveat is that you can't use this as a substitute for preparing. If you never have the answer yourself, it'll get annoying.
Mm-hmm. To make people afraid of you.
Yeah.
And that means that we need to figure out some things that would make you unpredictable, or things that suddenly change.
Sure.
Do you have ideas for something?
I mean, I will just give that a shot. If you have specific thoughts, that would help. No, I mean, like, I'm not gonna.
No, that's good. See, I'm just trying to get you to do my work.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
I feel like violating personal space.
Violating personal space does it. Mm-hmm. But we need to figure out something that can change. And maybe it's just as simple as just changing action verbs suddenly. And okay, here's one thing that can work, because you can be smooth with her, but then when she starts doing this, I don't have to
pushing back.
Yeah, I mean, then so if you are more aggressive than you initially seem,
sure.
Then when she's saying, I don't know, I kind of have to be somewhere, something bad would happen, then you can get much more impatient with her. So then you can try to, pressure her.
Yeah.
And also berate her for the stupidity of.
Right. You're dumb. Just give me a straight answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Listen, I was wondering if it's not too forward. If you're not too busy, you want to go someplace tonight?
I kind of have to be somewhere. Something bad might happen.
Something bad? What, are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
Another aspect of being the goal setter in chief is that you become the emotional sounding board for whether something feels right. As a production, we've chosen to trust your feelings. If you relate honestly and earnestly what things feel like for you, if you're a positive, non-judgmental first audience for this movie, then you fill an important role as someone we can ask if it feels right.
Was it too fast last time?
I felt that the walk up could be slower.
Okay.
Previously we had you looking more over. I'm actually feeling it a lot more when you don't do that a whole lot.
Okay.
I think it reveals your character better.
Yeah.
I can really feel that. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's good.
Ultimately, the only way for you to know if a take is good is to listen with your feelings. When you listen with your brain, you're comparing it to movies you've seen and you're wondering how other people might judge it. When you listen with your feelings, with your gut, you're relating your own actual personal feeling that you have right now, and that is reliable. Because how could you ever have someone else's feeling?
I think that the animosity for me comes a little bit out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was very convincing, all of it. It was really good. I bought it. Really good. Wow.
I never felt like it more convincing lengthwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that felt like the right length.
You really did that, though.
Yeah, but no, I get it.
But I think that lowered your energy a lot.
Right.
So as we keep exploring result directing, you can see that it's fine as long as it's not your primary way of directing and you don't expect the actors to actually play a result. The result is just a goal, and now we'll work together to figure out how to actually do it. It's important to remember that all these examples are edited together, so it looks like continuous result directing, and that gives the wrong impression.
I'm trying to create the dissonance.
Sure.
Of your behavior, I mean, what you're saying not matching what you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In rehearsal, you can pretty much do what you want because it's so far removed from shooting. And then result directing is a great way to try things and just find the ballpark, because it doesn't have to be a refined acting performance yet. But on the set, the actors now need to be in the moment and have a natural response.
Because there's just something wrong.
How do you know?
And that creates different priorities. You have a responsibility to make sure that the actors never become too self-conscious and too aware of how they come across. You want them to be focused on the business of the character.
So that's why that you change the subject, threaten to arrest them, and then just walk out. It's just you're killing the relationship right there.
And that's a sensitivity you have to develop. A little bit of result directing helps the actor channel their energy.
I think you can be harder on him. Let's try that again.
But the more you squeeze, the more you suffocate the character. All directing has that effect. It's not just result directing. A sign that you've gone too far is that the actors start to talk about themselves in terms of results.
Like layering it, so take that original awkwardness and try to put the cool on top.
I can do it more sleep deprived, like he's absolutely exhausted. Let me just draw it out a little bit more.
I could just tighten it up at the beginning.
Do you want to do hurt and rejected then?
That means that you've succeeded in getting the actors into the wrong part of their brains. And that's not to say that your job is to keep them in the dark about what's going on. The actors are fully capable of doing all the character analysis that you do, but it's not the best state of mind for them to be in for shooting. So another warning sign is when actors become too analytical about the character during the shoot.
Yeah, it wasn't what I read at first. I read it as like, sort of sweet. Like she's like playing it tough, but really what she's communicating is sweet. But I think that it's good that like she let that out earlier without meaning to, and then consciously.
And this is her cutting it off.
Yeah.
This is her backpedaling like crazy.
So this is again a balance you have to find, because a moderate amount of ongoing analysis on the set focuses the mind on the character's business, and it makes the acting better.
Another reason for staying is that you just want to make sure he actually leaves.
Yeah.
Because he was already not supposed to be here.
Right, absolutely.
But the moment the rational thinking weighs heavier than being in the moment, you zap the energy out of the character. Because suddenly we're standing outside of him talking about him. If you notice the actor's eyes glaze over, that's a sign that the process has become too mental.
When you're still on a timeout has that charge, it actually becomes less serious.
Has what charge?
Or if the actors get irritated at you.
You know what I mean, right?
Sure, yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, let's do it.
They simply want to do good work, but the direction is boxing them in too much. The kicker is that this is a delayed reaction. Actors are positive and forgiving of directors, so when they get frustrated, it has already been a problem for a while.
What exactly do you want from me?
We should actually give actors some credit for being patient. If someone were hovering over you telling you how to write your screenplay, you'd have less tolerance than most actors. When you've over-directed the actors, it's time to backpedal.
Well, actually, maybe I said too much. Maybe that would have happened by itself, and now I made it over happen. You know what? I can feel I'm walling you in with this. Let's forget that. Let's just go back to what we were doing.
You can also prefix result directing with your awareness that it's a result.
Can I get a little result in edgewise?
Sure.
Do you want to do hurt and rejected then? Or?
Yeah. It sounds wrong to talk about it like that, but yeah.
Okay.
Can we sort of, sorry for the result, but can we somehow make you more dreamy? Can we do a result on something bad? What does really annoyed look like? Like really annoyed and impatient.
If you know that you're out of bounds, then the actor doesn't have to fear a tidal wave of results.
Something bad? What are you fighting, crime by night?
Yeah, so you hit her with it. Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shame in apologizing for result directing because you tell the actor something very important, that you value the space they need to be in. Then the actors feel that their space is protected, that you know what's right and wrong, and then a little bit of trespassing isn't a big deal. A very effective way to remove any negative effects of result directing is also to bundle it with something active. For example, if you say talk slower, you need to make sure she gets how important this is. Then the objective is the primary reason you're saying it. And the result is just an example or a pointer for how to do it. Or just be bored and indifferent with the speech like you've said it a million times before and nobody ever pays attention. It's totally a result. But the picture you paint around it gives the actor a way to approach it.
So I think more a cooler delivery. We're still in a timeout. Maybe that's the one line that's more private than the others.
Okay.
Hey, don't get married, right?
You're still on a timeout.
I love the bigger eyes when he asks you out, because that's somebody asking me out.
You got it.
If you're free tonight, do you want to go someplace?
I don't know. I kind of have to be somewhere. Or something bad might happen.
The only thing I would like you to struggle a little more to say it.
Okay.
Because that actually makes it heavier.
Okay.
You're sending the signal that what I'm saying now is going to be bad. So here it is.
Okay.
Something bad? Are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
Okay. It's still too relaxed. The meeting has already started.
Sorry. Okay.
They're all sitting in there. Your PowerPoint is standing there on slide 1. Everybody's sitting there drumming their pens, trying to figure out why you called this meeting.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Bundling result directing actually helps other directing become clearer. The direction, "there's practically no way she'll say yes," can be interpreted many ways. Even if you understand it as just low expectations, the actor might interpret it as having to be more feisty to get a yes. But if you bundle in, so maybe talk slow and depressed, then the actor knows what planet you're on, and it still doesn't feel like a result. But there's an important difference here between initially using result directing to explain your vision and then using it between takes to calibrate.
But I think you're too okay with the whole situation here. That felt really fast this time where you came out. Tiny tweak.
Mm-hmm.
If it's okay.
Yeah.
Just because now I've beat the drum a lot for turning down the reaction. And let's turn a little bit back up again.
Okay.
I don't know. It starts to feel forced if we do it all the time. I mean, there's a peace about it and a naturalness that I start to miss after a while.
Okay.
But do you know what I mean? Do you feel like it's a lot?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm hitting that note and riding it for all it's worth, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tricky balance because it's far better that you just say what you want than going into some convoluted explanation to avoid result directing. And it really does help the actors to know if you want a little more or a little less, or to hold back or to lay it on.
Okay, can we then do just a pickup on you at the very last line? This changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you get much more serious there.
Okay.
Because this really does change everything.
But you're quickly spending your result quota. You can't do this more than a couple of times per camera setup before actors start trying to act for the result. There's also a chance that you're simply wrong in your interpretation. For example, many directors think that more intense means talking louder and faster.
It's such a stupid name.
Don't you understand that we can't just make up our own rules here? This matters way up the chain of command.
Dude, what the hell happened to you?
You know what? That's it. You're fired.
Are you crazy?
Hand over your keycard.
Mary, what are you doing?
I'm sorry, I really am.
This changes everything.
But intense is not just more. Intense is more psychology. It's a more difficult situation. It's having more at stake and having a harder time with it.
You know what? That's it. You're fired.
Are you crazy?
Hand over your keycard.
Mary, what are you doing?
I'm sorry. I really am.
This changes everything.
Turning a performance up or down puts the entire attention on the result, so you can't use it as a basis for directing. Only as a tiny tweak when the character is already solid. Lastly, if you've gotten actors into result thinking, you should immediately bring back a feeling of freedom.
Right, so just tighten up the whole, yeah.
Yeah, if we can, without otherwise messing it up.
Absolutely.
Same idea?
Let's try the same idea, but don't feel like you have to do the same thing again, though. Yeah, that's good, though.
I'll split the difference.
Let's just go again.
Okay.
It's also, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has to line up over here.
Right.
So, but, I mean, I have one that I love already.
Almost laugh?
Well, that's what I wrote in my note, but I mean, how do you do an almost laugh?
You want to pull them out of the idea that there is a single right way to do it. and you want to create a let's see what happens atmosphere.
Clap. Okay. Let's see where it goes. Action.
You have to ask for their creativity and participation because you want a thinking character in the scene, not just somebody doing a script. But you have to mean it. Too many directors tell the actors to feel free and just have fun with it, but the very next thing they say takes it all away. So now that we're more sensitive to the limits of result directing, let's explore a softer side based on what I've been calling active allowing. On the last volume, we talked about how acting depends on your ability to allow.
I don't want to, and I'm not crazy.
Maybe not. His DNA was found in Annie Taylor's body.
You'd think that he was just allowing this behavior to come through. But there is, in fact, a little bit of control. Like we said on the last volume, when you act, you have a mental preference for what you would like to have happen. And that makes the energy flow in that direction. Here we want the scene to be heavier. But she's not forcing it to be heavy. She's allowing it. She's actively allowing it.
Even if she's an alleged murderer?
Tracy, anyone that knows you knows that that's bull. Don Simpson murdered your husband. And your lawyer's gonna prove it. Hey, and you be doing me a favor. After all that's happened lately, I don't really want to be alone.
Active allowing is something that all actors do, whether they call it that or not. But it's also a directing technique.
So it's just okay to let that space happen.
Okay.
It's okay if she can see how you long for her.
Okay.
I'd rather that you just go for a straight one, but if you feel the impulse to fuck with them, then that's fine by me. I mean, just let it take time. This is it's a very tense moment. It's not boring. It's okay to live into that idea for a little bit until you remember why this is impossible.
Got it.
I don't know if you can feel the difference, but it's a lighter touch that feels freer. The wording sounds like just let it, or it's okay to, or I don't mind if you, or it's fine by me if you. And that makes the ball roll in that direction, but without all the pressure.
We've been through this one a few times, so I don't really have a lot to say. The only thing I obviously just want to remind is let's just let it be real and heavy, because this sucks. It's fine to oversell it, because you always luck out in the end.
Sure.
And if you end up overdoing it, that's okay.
Yeah.
So active allowing is a good technique, but there's a far more important reason why you need it. All drama is conflict and power struggle. What makes the engine run is when people are fighting for competing goals and are doing what it takes to control the other character. But actors almost universally don't want to have negative impact.
Going out with somebody like you would just be it'd be hard on me socially. My friends already think you look mousy. And I will never, ever go out with you.
Actors truly don't want to be the bad guy. They want to play good, respectable characters with respectable feelings.
I don't know, I'm really struggling with this. She's so racist. It's hard for me to even commit to saying these words because it's hard for me to go there.
And this is a problem. If you remove the negative potential in drama, you're not left with something positive. You're left with something neutered and psychologically false and completely irrelevant. But actors resist getting into actual conflict.
It's such a stupid name.
Does that fucking person matter to you? Do it again. I don't like being mean.
And the only reason you really sit down is to see if his brain works. What?
No, it's just poor guy.
So you have an obligation to actively allow negative behavior. You have to make it okay and acceptable to be negative. You have to actively give the permission so that you're the one taking responsibility for it. You're the one who told them to do it and they're off the hook.
We have to be true to, we have to tell this story. And that means that the end result of this is not that we're all going to sit and say, yay, racism. The end result of that is that we're going to see what it really is. And we're going to take a distance from it, and you're going to help us do it. And nobody is going to blame you for this. I think it's okay for you to go for the immorality and the selfishness of this character. And everybody will respect you for it as an actor, and nobody will think that these are your words.
Yeah.
Everybody will afterwards be able to step back and say, this is an acting performance.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to show what it's like, because we're teaching people what this is.
Mm-hmm.
This is really important because if you don't actively make it legal and safe for the actors to include parts of the human psyche that we're not proud of, it's not going to happen by itself. They will hold back until you actively allow it.
What?
No, it just, poor guy.
Yeah, I know, but that's
totally.
that's where we want to go.
Yep, absolutely.
The more you hurt him, the better. On the surface, it looks cruel, but it's not. It's understandable. I mean, you're dealing with your own stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you can be harder on him. Let's try that again.
Make sure you leave in reverse or I'm going to have to arrest you.
Okay.
You also have to give up the idea that your characters have to be ethical and justified in what they do, because it's not real. You're not as nice as you pretend to be. Yes, you have your altruistic side, but you're also selfish. And even when you're being nice, that's also an attempt at controlling other people by being nice. You have to accept that this side exists, and your job is not to fix it. Your job is to represent it. You have to actively encourage bad behavior. You have to appeal to the character's lower nature and reward the actors for going there.
I really like if you get this one over him. So it's fine, you make it look like it's just a break in the friendship, but it's not. You get the crown. You get all of this to yourself with him out of the picture. You just need an excuse.
Okay.
It's okay if you really control him.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to hold back.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to be alone right now.
That's a fucked up character. I like that.
So I'm like, let's get dinner.
Oh, okay. That's very duplicitous. That's very good.
Yes.
You have to learn to love bad feelings, because that's where the energy of the scene is.
But you know what? If it happens just a little bit slower, because it's okay. This is an awkward moment. We love awkward moments. Just sitting there.
Just like let that live.
Yeah, and it's okay to just let that squirm for a while.
Okay.
That was very painful at the end of the scene. That was hard to watch, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second part, you're doing the walk of shame suddenly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was cool to watch that.
Yeah, that's good.
And you have to love conflict. You should actively create problems. Your job is to light fires and let the actors put them out.
You're a troublemaker.
Yeah, but that's the
point. Trying to get your actors to...
we're trying to...
go at each other, all right.
Yeah. I mean, you're not exactly all friends in this script here. She's sort of, she's fun to irritate.
In fact, your biggest influence on the actors is not your directing techniques. You are the highest authority on the set, and everybody wants to make you happy. The stuff you encourage is the stuff that's going to happen.
You're free to go.
That was the best one for me.
Yeah, Charlie,
That line was great.
You are fucking obnoxious. That's very good.
Ultimately, the stuff you get is the stuff that you actively allow. I'd like to talk a little more about how much to direct actors. This video is a training program, so it would only make sense that we do as many techniques as possible, as much as possible. I also tend to over-direct and over-explain, and that's something I have to work on. But altogether, it creates the impression of much more directing that I'm trying to advocate. It is a dilemma how much to direct. Actors desperately need directors because you can't both be in the moment and understand the plot and your role in conflicts. No more than you can walk down the street in your life and understand where you are in your character arc. So the movie needs someone who looks at the drama from above. Drama works when the characters are as different from each other as possible. The characters have to come from as different realities with as different goals and different values as possible. And then when you slam them together in the particle accelerator, it's the difference between them that creates the drama. But none of this makes sense from the perspective of a single character. It takes a director to think about all of them. For drama to work, the characters have to be specific and distinct. We need to flesh out the gray so that the characters become as differentiated as possible. Because if she's independent and he's clingy, then you can see where the problems come from. Or if she has settled in life and he's ultra successful, the relationship has built-in conflict. It takes a director to demand that specificity because it doesn't happen automatically. So there's a natural progression that initially the director owns and controls the character. But then gradually there's a transfer of ownership where the actor takes more and more control of the character and you start to let go. You can see when an actor is ready to take control.
I think the rest of it, he's very scattered. He's very like, wait, I had something else. I know that there was something else I was supposed to. I don't think he's trying to.
That's good.
I know we were going along the lines at one point that he's trying to just get them to stay because he wants the attention, but I don't know that that serves where we're going in the end, where he's watching. He's completely devoted to finding the answers, and that would seem like counterproductive to just have them here. I think he does have something. He just can't
articulate it.
He can't articulate it, and I think he also might fear for his life. Like having them here, he feels a little more protected because the police.
That's a great idea.
And
yes,
he'd be like, you know what? I'm tired of you following me. I'm going to take care of you as well.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Could be in his brains.
I really agree.
Yeah.
That's good.
Another sign that an actor is ready to take ownership is that he'll disagree with you or contribute something that implies a better understanding than you have.
No, take a bite.
Okay.
And just take a second to hate her and then walk out.
Okay, can you scoot your feet forward? Can you come up to there?
Per, I'm going to beg to differ with you on this. I don't think hate is really...
Okay, I trust you on that.
And that's a golden moment that means that it's time for you to let go.
I think everything that he does is just trying to be like, we're going to go visit your crazy witness. Okay, well, let's have some fun. Like he's in for the like, all right, well,
let's do that. I think that's very interesting. I'd love to see how that goes.
You know, I'm with him. He's so crazy. I think he's adorable. I think that they're, and granted this is probably wrong, but that Reynolds is just wanting Lily here.
And not me.
Oh yeah.
There's only one good reason ever to stop an actor who feels sure in what he's doing, and we'll come back to that. But this means that the bulk of your directing happens at the beginning of the process, and then gradually you direct less and less. This is the most mental part of the process, and it belongs in rehearsal. And this is why you have to rehearse. Doing the most mental part of the process on the set is the worst possible thing you can do for acting. You're going to be taking slow, awkward baby steps with 30 employees waiting and money burning out of control. And the acting won't be great because you just can't create a specific character that fast. Now, there are some kinds of actors where the transfer of ownership happens faster. There are some actors who are just really good at creating characters. There are some actors whose personality is the main attraction and who therefore already own it. There are some actors on TV series who already know the character way better than you do. And there are some actors who just need to be private to build the character. And with those guys, result directing is the best thing you can do because it keeps a respectful distance.
Your character seeming nervous, don't be nearly as nervous.
Okay.
With result directing, you don't pretend that you can just open up their brains and start poking around. You say the result and let them figure out how.
I mean, is there any way we can do that but not go so quiet?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that I like that angle better than the embarrassing angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that shows how you think.
Mm-hmm.
But you should almost never respect if an actor refuses to even discuss the character. Because it can also be a sign of an uncommitted actor who's happy in his comfort zone. And that can ruin your movie. You have a duty to make the character specific, no matter who the actor is, and this is why you have to control. But that's usually welcome. Most actors, including big stars, love a director who can contribute a lot and teach them new things about the character. In case it's not clear, we're still at the result level in our layers of behavior. And next, I'd like to talk about what exactly defines a character. We've talked a lot about character ownership, but what does that mean? What exactly are you taking ownership of? What specifically defines your character? If someone offered you money to buy your character, what exactly would they be buying? And that's a tough question. I'm going to propose that there are 6 things that you have to define for every character. The traits, flaws, typical behavior, dramatic contrast, character arc, and scene function. The reason you have to define them is that they put boundaries on your character. You have every option for how to create this character. But without boundaries, without removing some options, there's nothing that makes him this character and not that character. He'll just be every character at the same time. So one moment she's awkward. Then suddenly she's angry. Then suddenly she's buttoned up. Then suddenly she's rejecting. And then suddenly she's flirting. If you don't define the character, it will be all over the map, because you have nothing to tie it together. Let's try to do traits, flaws, and typical behavior for some of the characters in this course. Traits are any personality traits that stick out, and they can be anything you want. For example, Forrest Gump sees the best in other people. Flaws are the personality traits that are a problem for the character and where he's actually his own worst enemy. For example, Buzz Lightyear is overconfident. And typical behavior is examples of something the character would do. For example, Cosmo Kramer moralizes others while his own life is a mess. So let's start with Lily, who's the detective in the crime drama. She was abandoned by her parents and grew up away from civilization with relatives who had no interest in her. Her traits are that she's hyper-logical and probably has an undiagnosed disorder.
Dumping at the quarry is an $800 fine per infraction, MCC 1083335, Section E.
She finds human relationships illogical and doesn't understand why people put themselves through the pain of emotional attachment. She feels most at home solving gruesome crimes. She's beautiful but has no idea what that means. Her flaws are that she's very abrasive and has zero social skills or patience for social customs.
Thousands of people took a vow of silence?
Yes.
She takes other people literally and doesn't know how to interpret their behavior. Deep inside, she longs for human connection, but it makes her extremely uncomfortable.
Make sure you leave in reverse or I'm gonna have to arrest you.
Okay.
Her typical behavior is that she'll say the uncomfortable truth without thinking about consequences. She'll interrupt people if she thinks they're done talking. And she'll walk out on conversations if they're not interesting.
Please stop calling. It's wasting police resources.
But I have something else. Thanks, buddy. I owe you one.
Already you can see that this character is starting to turn into somebody specific. And then let's look at Ranald. He went crazy after his daughter was murdered and the killer went free. He's obsessed with solving the murder. He got divorced because of it and now lives in his car. His traits are that he's deeply suspicious of everyone. He blames everyone for everything. He's very intelligent, but sees conspiracies everywhere.
Come on, the angle of the shadows, the way the flag waved in the wind. It was filmed at a studio in Nevada, and everyone took a vow of silence.
His flaws are that he's desperate for emotional support, but he's too hostile to get it. He pushes people away if they don't believe him, so he's very lonely. He assumes that people are out to get him, and he doesn't give good people a chance. His typical behavior is that he holds on to his possessions, thinking everyone is trying to steal them. He puts no effort into his appearance. And he pretends to be really confident, but he crushes like an eggshell.
Me? You sure?
I'm giving you a compliment.
Thank you.
These are tough questions, and you might have to think about them for a while. But answering them makes the character solid and real because we define what he is and what he isn't. This informs every subsequent choice you make about the character, and it's part of every discussion you have with the actors.
I think that fits really well with your personality, that because anybody else, they would follow up. That's not important because blah, 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 whatever. It's just, that's not important, dead air. The only thing that's strange is that I don't think it's in your character's nature to really give a whole lot of shit. And I think if we start caring too much, then we start to tip over in that direction. Another thing I thought for you is if you're really, really caring.
Okay.
But sort of all the mannerism of caring, but none of the feeling of caring.
I'm just saying, okay.
I'd like for you to assume that he's being constructive and working with you. So I made some changes to the scene because your character had a line that sort of sounded a little bit like a zinger. And I feel like your character doesn't have zingers. When you do that, it's not on purpose. It's because you're a bull in a china shop. And so I felt that line, even though there might be sort of a delivery that makes it a little bit neutral, I felt that it was too much of a zinger, so I killed it. As you just talk to him, expecting that you can just demand a straight answer and you'll get it. Like you're walking up to a computer and you say, what's 10 plus 10? And it'll tell you 20. I like how you make decisions quickly about whether this is worth your time. And so, not worth my time, and then you start going.
That sounds like a lot of direction when you edit it like that. But you can see that defining the character is the magic glue that informs every other choice you make. Without defining the character, you're going to make too many different choices, and the character is going to be all over the map when you edit it together. So now that the characters are specific, the next important goal is to make them different. All conflict and drama comes from the difference between the characters. When the characters come from truly different places with different beliefs and different goals, every single time, like magic, the scene starts working all by itself. Here the character David is romantically attracted to Pete and he thinks he's been getting some signals. But for Pete, this is purely a work relationship, like borrowing a stapler, and he's not looking for personal relationships at the office at all.
Oh, hey, you look good.
Hey, how you doing?
Listen, I was wondering if it's not too forward, if you're not doing anything tonight, you want to go somewhere?
I don't know. I kind of have to be someplace, or something bad might happen.
Something bad? Are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
It's interesting that not only does the difference between the characters create automatic tension, you also feel each individual character more clearly. But dramatic contrast means more than just being different. It means that the characters plug into each other's issues. For example, Elaine is very dominating. Her husband, Lawrence, is kind of a pussy, so you can see how that relationship works. But he also wants to think that he's cool. So he's trying to impress Leonard, who's a psychopath who has totally lied about his amazing CEO life. And Lawrence is an easy target because he's blinded by his own need for validation. Leonard does not appreciate being dominated. So when Elaine makes a condescending remark about his car, he decides to kill her.
This neighborhood has turned into crap. It's all these riffraff people coming in. I saw some lady with bags down on Division.
Oh, you don't need to worry about that, Elaine. I mean, they can't afford this neighborhood. The worst you're going to get is a squatter. And they don't stay long.
I don't feel safe around here anymore. I mean, I saw this car down the street with the smashed windows. Whose is that?
That's mine.
Really?
Yeah, it's a loaner. My car's in the shop right now.
Well, you really should get a better loaner. That thing is attracting the wrong kind of people.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Hey, don't get married, right?
You're still on a timeout.
So you can see how the characters are specifically designed to plug into each other's problems. They're not just different. There's a special reason they're together in this movie, because they're a match made in hell. This is a game we're playing, and your job is to make it a fun and deliciously nasty game. It's a great feeling for the actors when the characters themselves plug into each other, because you can feel that the scene has tailwind.
You know, I'm not crazy.
Maybe not.
It's already working, no matter how you act it. And this is not a game you should keep secret from the actors. They need to know what the game is so they can help make it happen.
You know, he's an outcast. Mm-hmm. And so is she. And so he feels sort of a kinship with her. He's sort of oddly, I wouldn't say romantically attracted, but more like your mom kind of attracted. He's drawn towards her. He's really irritated that you are here. I mean, he tried to get her to come under the guise of having some evidence. He wasn't expecting you were going to be there too.
And so maybe I pick up on that.
Yeah.
And just sort of...
Yeah, fuck with him.
Agent provocateur here. And it's egging her on. And also, like, you're really going to have a serious conversation with him about the moon landing? Okay.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, this is fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Waving in the wind. Oh, no, I'm totally with him.
Yeah, sure. This makes perfect sense. You're sticking it to her.
I don't think it's about him.
No, you're using him.
Yeah, yeah.
All this talk of defining the characters brings us to the ultimate constraint we have to put on characters, which is the character arc. All stories are based on something changing from beginning to end. For example, Charlie's character starts out frustrated that his magic isn't working on Lily. But much later, he develops compassion for her mental problems and starts to feel protective. That's a character arc, and your story is not really a story without it. But having a character arc means that we're not free to just make up the character as we go along.
So. Sure, what the hell? Let's try it. Let's see what that looks like.
If we do every scene in a new way because we feel like it, the character will jump around and fail to come together in the edit. And that will make your movie incomprehensible to the audience. A character arc is a narrow road we have to tread. And that means that you have to enforce the character arc. I talked earlier about there only being a few times you should overrule an actor, and this is one of those times. No matter how good an idea we think we have, and no matter how big a star the actor is, if an acting choice takes us off the character arc, you have to veto it.
I mean, I love that for a different movie. But it's funny. And I think it's not helping us to be too jokey here. It's sort of eating away at the seriousness. It's a lovely idea, but I think it takes us off in the wrong direction.
You can veto it gently, and it has to be rare, but you have to do it or the character falls apart. That doesn't mean that you can't be creative.
Remember that you're hot. That means that you're still full of yourself.
Okay.
Let's see how that is.
Okay.
Anyway, it's an idea. I may cancel it afterwards, but we'll see.
Many acting choices just don't affect the arc, and there's lots of wiggle room on either side of the arc. It's also fine to make total oddball choices as long as you do it knowing what it'll do to the arc, not being ignorant of it. You might even discover a new side to the character. You should also vary each take to hit above and below the arc because it happens all the time that you get to editing and realize that it all needed to be up here. So there's lots of flexibility.
What we've been doing now is we've been doing one that's a little bit too much, and now I want to go do one that's in the opposite direction. I'd like you to find a way to bottle up your anger more.
Okay.
And the end result of that is that you're going to be, you know, a little cooler and more determined.
Okay, great.
And in rehearsal, you should always make oddball choices.
Just go as far as you possibly can.
Okay.
Just do whatever's clearly wrong.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
You should never lock down the arc before you've explored the margins. In order to enforce a character arc, you need to work out exactly what change in behavior would happen. It's not enough to know theoretically that the character ends up feeling differently. So what symbolizes the change? For example, in this story, the character starts out really insecure and awkward and pretends to be cool.
Sup?
Hey, how are you doing?
Listen, if you're not doing anything later, I don't want to be too forward, but we should go out tonight. Do something.
I don't know. Actually, I have something that I have to do, and if I'm not there, something bad might happen.
Oh, something bad? You gotta fight crime by night?
In a way.
Yeah.
But during the story, he becomes rich and self-confident. He starts to talk slower, he's calmer, and does less to please the other character.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
You look good.
How are you?
Listen, if you're not doing anything later, not to be too forward, do you want to do something?
I don't know. I actually have to be somewhere tonight or something bad might happen.
Oh, something bad? Like fighting crime by night?
In a way.
Okay.
The only way we know that the arc has happened is if the character does something differently. You need to find out what. So the character arc is the overall evolution of the character. But every scene also has a mini arc. If nothing changes in a scene, there's really no reason for a scene to be in a movie. So you have to answer the question of what the function of every scene is. And the typical way is to ask yourself, what would be missing from the movie if you cut the scene? For example, this is the scene where Lily finally has had enough of Reynolds' bullshit.
I owe you one.
And it's the scene where Reynolds has overstayed his welcome.
We're not all the way there yet, so I can't talk about it, but that was some good police work you did.
Me? You sure?
The car scene is the scene where someone finally believes in Reynolds, which overwhelms him emotionally. And it's the scene where Lily accidentally opens up to him and then immediately regrets it. Clearly, something would be lost if we took these scenes out of the movie. So these are tough questions, but if you can't identify what exactly happens in a scene, you have a problem that will only get bigger. You can brush off plot holes in the script, but they're painfully obvious once it's shot and edited, so you have to fix them now. So this is the end of the discussion of the result layer. And let's summarize it. We've talked about being the goal setter in chief, where you set goals and work together to figure out how to actually do them. We've talked about discussing the emotional state with the actors, and especially bundling results with more active things so the result just becomes an example of how the actor might do it. We've talked about discussing the scene feeling so the actors know what planet you're on. We've talked about turning the performance up and down, which is a legitimate tweak on a character that's already working. We've talked about active allowing, and especially allowing the actors to be negative with each other. We've talked about transfer of ownership, which is not really a technique, but something to know. Then we talked about defining the character, starting with traits, which are anything that sticks out. Then flaws, which are personality traits that are actually working against the character. And examples of typical behavior, which are a window into the character's true nature. Then we talked about the character arc and the importance of staying on track. And then we talked about the scene function, which you have to be aware of. So that's the result layer. And now we're going to move on to something else, so this is a good time to take a break. The next layer of behavior is the objective, which is what the character wants or needs. The objective concentrates the actor on a goal, and it's a question you have to answer before you're able to make any other choice. Imagine driving in your car not knowing where you're going or even where you want to go. And compare it to driving because you have to get to that address and tell her that you love her before she leaves for Africa. Acting without an objective is aimless and idle.
Listen, this is really forward, but if you're free later, do you want to go somewhere?
I don't know. I kind of have to be somewhere or something bad will happen.
Something bad will happen. Are you fighting crime at night?
An objective gives necessary direction to the character.
Hey, how's it going?
Listen, this is very forward, but if you are free later, do you want to go somewhere?
I don't know. I kind of have to be somewhere. Something bad will happen.
Something bad? Do you fight crime in the night?
We're always driven by our wants and needs and desires, even if we don't know what they are. Even just walking into a room, you have an objective, like trying to impress them. There's never a time that we don't have an objective. And if you don't know what your character's objective is, it just means that you haven't found it yet. There's sort of a standard model on objectives that you first need to figure out the character's overall objective, like I want love. And that's good to know, but it's too abstract. So we make it more specific by dividing the story into acts, which then have sub-objectives. So Act 1 becomes I want her to love me back. Act 2 is I want to manipulate and coerce her into loving me. And Act 3 is I want to earn and deserve her love. They're all in the service of the overall objective, but they're different approaches. Within an act, you then have objectives for each individual scene. So in Act 2, it might be I want you to feel obligated to love me. Or I want you to think that I'm not pressuring you. And then inside each scene, you have a series of small objectives called active verbs, and some people call them actions. And these are verbs stated in the infinitive, like to flirt or to beg or to bully, or seduce, incite, soothe, intimidate, or mock, etc. So at the top, you have abstract goals like I want love. And then they get more and more specific and hands-on. It's common to use the words subjective and active verb interchangeably, but they're not the same because the active verb is the only one you can act. It has been discussed for 100 years what makes a good objective. What is the perfect objective that produces amazing acting? But I've come to believe that people are drastically overestimating how much an objective can do. Objectives are essential for giving the energy direction. But then they max out. But because it worked the first time, people keep pushing and pushing to the extreme.
Don't you understand that we can't just make up our own rules here? This matters way up the chain of command.
I think this produces acting that's too intense for no good reason.
Hand over your keycard.
Mary, what are you doing?
I'm sorry, I really am.
It also produces this ultra hyper-focused acting that can feel like a staring contest.
Listen, I was wondering, if you're not doing anything later, do you want to go somewhere?
I don't know. I kind of have to be someplace, or else something bad might happen.
Something bad? Are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
It's actually something other than objectives that makes objectives work. So when we're talking about objectives, we're also talking about three other things. First, obstacles, which are not given enough credit, but they're actually far more important than objectives. Then we have the positive motivation, which is what winning the objective means to you. And then we have the negative motivation, or stakes, which is what will happen if you don't win the objective. What's important to get is that the objective is simple. It's just what the character wants, and you shouldn't turn it into rocket science. It's these force multipliers, if you will, that are really responsible for giving the objective its power. So let's dig into objectives, and remember that they're separate from active verbs. Right now, we're talking about scene objectives, which are simply what the character is trying to get out of the situation.
In this scene here, you know what? I'd like you to just focus on one thing throughout the whole scene. If you could try to prove to her that you're not a creep, and just really reassure her, because you're not a creep. But it gets you close to power, and so you want to convince him to hurry up and divorce his wife. And that's basically, that means that what you're doing in the scene is that you're showing him why you're better. You're getting all this. You just need to give her a reality check now.
Okay.
You know what? I don't want to go out with you. You're ugly.
Okay.
He's the cool executive who moved in next door, who's like the, Richard Branson on steroids. And so you're trying to prove to him that you're cool, and you want to get on that train.
Yeah.
So that's why you're showing him all the time that you're cool. So I'll make some more money, right?
Yeah. The manager is personally looking for it right now.
Don't give me that. I know I left it in my purse.
Don't worry. I'll just make more money, okay?
Hey, money's good.
Everything ties to the objective. For example, where should Reynolds look?
I'm 200 yards away. Measure yourself.
Should he be open or closed with her? How should she say her lines? Is it better if she's quieter or more forceful? That depends on what the character is trying to achieve. Without knowing what the characters are trying to do, we can't know how to do it either. We're missing the glue that ties all the behavior together. So you have to figure out the objective, but this is hard because it confronts that you don't know your character all that well. But it's a battle you have to fight. You also want objectives that are active and trigger behavior. It's not enough to just have a goal. It has to be a goal that you can get fired up about. For years, I've been trying to crack the code of what makes a good objective, and I've found that there are 11 features that good objectives seem to have in common. The first is that you should try to avoid literal objectives.
Well, I guess your objective is...
to get her to stay at my place.
Yeah. What are you trying to get from him in this scene?
I want him to admit that what he did was wrong, that it wasn't good for the company.
Okay.
Because he obviously thinks that it was.
Well, there's a couple of ways to go. I mean, you might want to find out how it went because you want to find out if you have a shot. I mean, how it went compared to how it would have gone if you asked out.
The problem with literal objectives is that there's nothing to invest in emotionally. If the character wants to go over and sit in a chair, that might be true, but it's just practical, there's no passion in it. You should always look for the objective under the objective. If a prisoner wants to get parole, then that's not really his objective. His objective is to convince the parole board that he's a changed man. And that's something you can get to work on right away. We all have a tendency to read the script literally and be very left brain about the objective. And it's something you should catch in both yourself and the actors.
My objective is to get him to go out with me so I can get more information. And this time when we did it, I felt like when you said something bad might happen, in my head I was like, does it have to do with this transaction that we're talking about? Like, what do you mean something bad?
Mm-hmm. So can we come up with an objective that's less literal in the sense that, for example,
instead, you should try to look for psychological objectives that are about trying to control how the other actor feels or thinks. Here, Pete is trying to calm her down.
Come on, honey, you left it at Whole Foods. The manager is personally looking for it right now.
Don't give me that. I know I left it in my purse.
Don't worry. I'll just make more money, okay?
Trying to manage someone else's emotional state is something you can really latch onto, because you have to constantly measure if it's working and then adapt.
Oh, you don't need to worry about that, Elaine. I mean, they can't afford this neighborhood.
Here, Brandon is a creepy character whose literal objective is to get Molly inside of his apartment. But the emotional objective is to make her trust him.
With the air, you know, because to stay on her, because the minute that if I let it breathe, let her breathe, she could leave. But more just kind of stay on her and then completely control it.
This is far more engaging because he has to work her.
Don Simpson murdered your husband. And your lawyer's going to prove it. Hey, and you be doing me a favor. After all that's happened lately, I don't really want to be alone.
Try to contrast that with a literal objective.
I mean, you might want to find out how it went because you want to find out if you have a shot. I mean, how it went compared to how it would have gone if you asked out.
Even if that's technically your goal, there's no ongoing process around it. It's just, I want to find this information. But then what? Emotional state objectives might sound like you want her to open up to you, or you need to get her to calm down, or you have to make them all excited about your idea, or make her feel envious. Each of these is an ongoing process because you have to keep measuring the other actor's emotional state and you have to keep changing your tactic.
What if you're rubbing it in her face?
Yeah.
You know, this is what you could be doing.
Okay. So, how did it go?
Well, we went out. And you know, we had a pretty good time.
Come on, details. Did you make out?
Maybe.
Did you kiss?
I don't really feel comfortable talking to you about this.
Honey, it's me.
Yeah, she can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
The other half of psychological objectives is to control what the other actor thinks or believes, so I call that a belief objective. The literal way would be that Tyler wants to convince her that the product name is stupid.
I totally disagree. This is the right decision.
It doesn't matter.
The decision was made to go with Electra.
But Electra is a stupid name.
Don't you understand that we can't just make up our own rules here?
That's the literal, linear, and frankly boring moment that's already happening in the script, and we're just trying to pump more emotion into it. But there's also the real moment between us that's happening on top of the script.
My stomach is rumbling.
Your stomach is rumbling.
My stomach is rumbling.
Your stomach is rumbling.
My stomach is rumbling.
That's where the real acting happens, and anything we put on this layer is much more alive because it's literally happening right now. We want to come up with belief objectives that work at this level, something we can try to make each other believe regardless of what's happening in the scene. The main one is imposing what the other actors should believe about you.
You're trying to prove to him that you're cool.
Hey, don't get married, right?
You're still on a timeout.
That helps feeling that you're not in the inner circle, and that means you are a little bit cut off. You have to work, so you have to still prove why you're worthy.
Her brother doesn't stop talking. Oh, he's so hell-bent on being my friend. I heard about 100-year flood zones all week.
It's just for a little while longer.
Or you have to make her believe that you're telling the truth. Or let him know that you're independent and not easy to get.
Hi, you look good.
Hey, how are you doing?
Listen, I was wondering, if it's not too forward, if you're not too busy, you want to go someplace tonight?
I don't know, I kind of have to be somewhere. Something bad might happen.
Something bad? Are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
You might also try to impose what they should believe about themselves. Reynolds' whole behavior is to say that Lily is nothing special to him. Which is of course not true, but that's still what he wants her to believe.
Measure yourself.
I'm not here about the restraining order.
Maggie's behavior continuously says that her husband is beneath her.
Getting worked up about stuff, like the fact that this fucking neighborhood is going to crap. And we just moved here. So we probably need to move somewhere else.
Here Charlie's trying to make Carl feel like he's a nobody.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
The beauty is that a belief objective is something we can play right now. It doesn't have to be anything it actually says in the script, as long as I can try to make you believe it and then check if it's working.
Because it didn't mix anymore.
Why didn't you take it to the city dump?
This comes full circle if Pete wants to push a belief on Laura, but Laura resists. Suddenly we have a very active push-pull.
Hi, you look good.
Hey, how are you doing?
Listen, I was wondering, if it's not too forward, if you're not too busy, you want to go someplace tonight?
I don't know, I kind of have to be somewhere. Something bad might happen.
Something bad? Are you fighting crime by night?
In a way.
What makes something active is simply that it's an ongoing process. And that's a flavor we can even bring to literal objectives. There's a wording that many actors use which captures this, that you have to make sure he gets how important this is. Or you have to make it clear that you're not into him. Or make sure he knows that you don't respect his authority. Or impress upon him that he needs to watch out. The operative words here are make sure and make it clear, which implies that it's not a done deal. You have to keep doing it to make sure it sticks. Even though it's just a little twist of the language, that wording makes a difference.
So if you make sure to communicate it to him, make sure he gets it.
Yeah.
And he really sees the picture you have in your mind.
Yeah.
When you tell him to back out in reverse, I'm going to have to arrest you, okay?
Yep.
I think we should let that moment sit for a little bit, and you just make sure he gets it.
Make sure you leave in reverse or I'm going to have to arrest you.
Okay.
But the question is, why are we so hell-bent on controlling other people? The reason is that we're all codependent, and I'd like to spend 2 seconds on the psychology. Codependency started as a term to describe the behavior of children of addicts. That I have to stabilize you so you can take care of me. That I have to make you happy so you can make me happy. It's obviously a bad situation. But it's a fundamentally other-oriented thinking that really describes all relationships. That I depend on you for how I feel. That I depend on you for what I think of myself. And the only way I can control how I feel is by controlling you. I have to control myself through you. Obviously, this is something we're supposed to outgrow, but let's not fix it just yet. Let's use it. Other-oriented objectives are engaging because it's not easy to control someone else. It takes your full attention. Your attention has to reach all the way over to the other actor to make her give you a feeling or give you a belief. So ask yourself this question. How does the other actor hold the key to my happiness? The answer is going to be a very active objective. For example, Paul's character is trying to finagle Molly to make her give him the belief that he's cool.
Sup?
Hey, how are you doing?
Listen, if you're not doing anything later, I don't want to be too forward, but we should go out tonight. Do something.
I don't know, actually. I have something that I have to do, and if I'm not there, something bad might happen.
Oh, something bad? You gotta fight crime by night?
In a way.
Yeah.
That brings us to another sign of a good objective, which is that it's testable. And that means, as you're trying to influence the other character, how do you know if it's working? How do you know if it's not working? If you're trying to make your husband believe that he's inferior, a sign of it working could be that he looks to you for permission before speaking. Or maybe that he bows his head a little bit as a show of inferiority. Until he does those things, you have to work harder.
And so we had to buy a new one.
A sign of it not working could be that he's too independent and too self-confident. He's too happy and engages with other people and smiles and seems to not need you at all. He speaks without looking to you for permission. That's again your cue to work harder on taking him down a notch.
So I think you having a social life takes some of the pressure off me.
And him working late takes some of the pressure off me.
We've defined what success looks like, and we can keep measuring and testing the other actors to see if it's working. And that's how you get the feedback loop. Let's contrast this with an abstract or literal objective, like convincing her that she's wrong about the product.
It doesn't matter. The decision was made to go with Electra.
Such a stupid name.
How does a person look when they're convinced compared to when they're not? Would you even be able to see it? There's nothing to sink your teeth into here. It's just, is she convinced? I don't know. End of story. And that's the problem with literal objectives. There's nothing to keep testing, so there's no ongoing process. You should be able to visualize exactly what success looks like.
What's your objective?
To convince him that I'm being sincere.
Yeah, but what does it look like when you convince him?
What does success look like?
Would be him coming out with me.
But that's still, it's sort of an end result. It's still just a business. What's right now? What would be an indicator that what you're doing is working?
I mean, besides him agreeing to go out with me, I think.
But he might agree towards the end. That may or may not happen. But what are you measuring? What are you looking for to see if it's working?
Gauging his reaction.
Yeah. What are you looking for to see if it's working?
Seeing if he looks excited about it or looks like he wants to go, or if that does seem like something that's inviting to him or a good idea to him.
Sure. So, you can see that it looks like he wants to.
Yeah.
But it also looks like he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So you're trying to sort of relate to the part of him that wants to go. You're trying to pull that out of him.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's try again.
Okay.